Hi everyone, today's November 9th, 2019, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger, and this week in Duel Links, it's mostly the event, Transcend Game Part 2. We finally get to get our new character, but it's not the one that I expected, frankly. I expected that we would get the Unknown Duelist, but instead we got Sarah. We're going to talk about Sarah's unique duel abilities, the new cards we get from the event, and also her level up cards and things. We're also getting into a silly discussion about what neuron gears are. I had to do some reading to find out what they are, but a lot of debate on Twitter on whether we are collecting eggs or something else. Also this week we're going to talk about esports. There's a new deck coming out, a new development in invoked decks that we're going to check out. Also, let's see what else there is. Mission Circuit, a new card from Mission Circuit, so we'll talk about that. Not much else. Doug Dimmed Duel will have a deck of the week, and due to what we'll call editing magic, I currently do not know what the deck of the week is, because currently it is the night of November 8th, 2019, and it's not actually November 9th, but we'll pretend it is when we mix it all together. So, Doug's deck of the week is currently a surprise, and we'll find out later in the episode what it is. I'll magically know what the deck of the week is. Alright, so my week in the Duel World. So last time the Turbo Duels ended, I only got one Doppel Warrior, I think. I didn't make out too well with that. So that event definitely needed improvement, but in terms of ranked duels, I decided to begin the season with vampires. What sprung this idea is I've always liked playing vampires. They were a deck I got King of Games with multiple times. They fell off the meta, and with that 99-cent sale, I opened up some of the Vendread box, and I got Plague Spreader Zombie as my free UR. I wound up getting another Plague Spreader Zombie by buying through some of the box for some of the Synchro monsters. But you only need one to make vampires go back. And I'm playing some games. I'm not playing a ton of games again, but I am in Platinum 5. My win rate is good enough, and I should be in Legend in no time. So I'll just talk about the deck real fast. So you're playing Bandit Keith. Bandit is a pretty good skill with vampires because they lose a lot of life. They have to pay 500 every time they get a special summon and they tutor or something. You can pay 500 with Vampire's Domain. Some of them, like Grace, you could pay 2,000 to summon her from the graveyard. There's a lot of things you could do. And, Bandit, you steal your opponent's card, the set card, but you have to have lost 2,500 life, so that's quite a bit. You're kind of playing dangerously, but it's a very good skill. Another skill that could work very well if this is Destiny Draw, of course, because it's easier to lose 2,000 than 2,500, and then you could draw whatever vampire card you want to win the game. So, so basically this deck, you try to max out on your disposal cards, so 3 Samurai Skull. If you have 3 Gozuki, go for 3, but only have 2, so I have 2 Gozuki. 1 copy of Plague Spreader Zombie. I don't think you need 2. This isn't really a synchro deck, but this gives you an option for some outs to play synchros. 2 copies of Retainer and 2 copies of Familiar. These are, the workers of the deck. You toss them with your disposal monster, and then you bring them back. Typically, a play I like a lot is I Samurai Skull, I toss Retainer, Retainer comes back, and I toss a monster, probably like Grace or something, and then I get Vampire Takeover, and then I'll summon Grace next turn. 1 copy of Vampire Vamp. She's a big one now. If they ever put a monster out with over 2,000 attack, you could win the game the next turn. Very solid. 2 copies of Grace. Previously played around with Grimson. Grimson's a card you can put into the deck, But I have 2 copies of Grace here. Sub out Grace for Grimson if you want to play Grimson. 2 copies of Vampire Kingdom, the field spell. It's the core of the deck. 2 Econ. 1 Vampire's Desire, arguably the hardest card to play in the deck. Really tests the skill of the player if they really know how to use Vampire's Desire. 1 copy of Domain. Domain will help you set up the ramp, typically for the Vamp play. 1 copy of Vampire Takeover, of course, for that special summon, and to put the field directly on the board, which is very good. And then 3 Simultaneous Loss. This is a very good card. 4 vampires, each player sends the top card of their deck to the graveyard. You use it for hard removal. You could use Simultaneous Loss and Grace in the same turn to pop 2 cards. And then the extra deck. My extra deck is pretty bad, actually. I have 1 Scrap Dragon, 1 Armadides, 1 Gigantic Castle, 1 Samurai Destroyer. And I didn't get the Red Eyes Necro card that works with Plague Spur Zombie, so instead I have Revived King Hades and Archfiend Zombie Skull. Revived King Hades actually has a very good ability. Negate the effects of effect monsters destroyed by battle with zombie monsters you control. This actually negates them in the graveyard permanently. You destroy that dragon egg, and then it can't activate in the graveyard. They try to activate it, it gets nullified. So this is actually one I would keep. Archfiend Zombie Skull is just there for filler, frankly. You need 3 materials to do it. So Plague Spreaders, 2 stars. Retainers, 2 stars. You need like 3 of those guys on the board, which is a bit clunky, frankly. I might have to switch that for something better. But anyways, that is my zombie deck. It's pretty fun, and I'm having a blast playing zombies again. Let's move on to competitive esports. Duel Links Meta Weekly, number 97, I believe. So basically what happened here was Dark Lords were gone last week, and they are back. Give them enough time, they take over the meta. They're just a clear-cut Tier 1. I expect them to be top dog in the Kaiba Cup upcoming soon. First place Ericsson tie that binds Dark Lords. A disturbing finding here in Dark Lords in this community is that Lava Golem seems to have become a staple card in the deck. Dark Lords have very good sustain. Even with the nerfs, they found creative ways to come back, primarily with Dark Lord Amdusk, which allows you to revive. You send those cards back from the graveyard to the deck, so you just keep recycling. It's an endless loop. Lava Golem helps end any stall potential that your opponent's trying to deck you out or whatever. You just pop Lava Golem on them. Second place Sham, Sorcery Conduit, Parshaf Invoked. So notable thing about this deck is this is the new Invoked deck with a Parshaf package. You could play this new Invoked deck without the Parshaf package, and furthermore, this deck involves both new monsters. What's the same, right? You got your 3 Alisters, 2 Flip-Flop Frog, 3 Cosmic Cyclone, 2 Invocation, and then for this deck you have the Parshaf package. 3 Rebirth of Parshaf, 2 Cursed Seal of the Forbidden Spell, which is actually a very good tech card against Invocation or Neos Fusion. They can't activate the card for the rest of the duel, so that's game over for those decks. And then 2 Ultimate Providence, kind of all-purpose. Effect, Spell, Trap, Negation. What's different now? This deck has 3 Scrap Goblins. This is an Earth monster. It helps the deck get into the Invoked Magellanica play. And Scrap Goblin, it's a tuner as well, so what happens here is it's a level 3, Alistair's level 4, it lets you play Black Rose Dragon. That's the only other synchro in this deck that's not Parshaf or a fusion monster. And Scrap Goblin can't be destroyed by battle. If it's face up and selected as an attack target, you destroy it at the end of the battle phase. If it's destroyed by the effect of a scrap card and sent from the graveyard, you can select a scrap monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So that's not really consequential, but just survives that turn, I think. And the other card that is seeing play is Retaliating Sea. This is one of those sea insect cards. During either player's turn, when your opponent activates a spell that includes the effect of special summoning a monster, you can special summon this from your hand. If summoned this way, while this card is face up on the field, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one Earth insect monster with 1500 or less, except for Retaliating Sea. So this is the other card that they use for this Magellanica play, and this is pretty obvious. It's really good against Invocation. They or even Magicalized Fusion, I think. So they special summon the monster. You bring this onto the board, and then any card sent from the field from the ban to the graveyard is any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So very good against those cards. And yeah, that's all I have to say about those two new additions to Invoked. Third place, -1. Draw Sense High Level, Plasma, Ritual Beasts. This is pretty much what Ritual Beasts are for. To play Plasma, you have 3 monsters on the board, pretty easy with their swarm capability and also ability to contact fuse and defuse. And yeah, it's pretty much just setting up a play for Plasma. Plasma is a bit like Vampire Vamp. You target the opponent monster, you equip it, and then it gains attack equal to half of that monster's attack. So, it also negates the effects of monsters while your opponent controls them. So it's doubly good for. It's better than Vamp, but less attack. And then some of the core cards: Winda, Canahawk, Petalfin, Elder, Apelio, Lara, Ritual Beast, Ambush. This one doesn't have the quick play from the archetype that you normally see, and of course they have all those contact fusions. In third place, Biscaya, BL, Kaiba Bling, Dark Lords. Pretty much the same deck as before. You have Lava Golem again. They rely on Cosmic Cyclone. This one has 3 copies of Dark Lord Desire, though. It's a pretty good card. Send any monster to the graveyard. This card loses 1,000 attack. And the prismatic card here for Kaiba Bling, of course, is Banishment of the Dark Lords. Move on to the next tournament, Battle Phase 22. It's been a while since I've covered this tournament, but invoked decks were the most common in the top 32 here. First place, KC Full, Draw Sense High Level, Plasma, Ritual Beast. Pretty much the same deck as before, 21 cards. It does include the quick play spell, Ritual Beast's Bond. Yeah, you're just playing cards, playing the Ritual Beast to help play your Plasma. Second place, Spectra Phantom, Sorcery, Conduit, Invoked. So this one has 2 copies of Retaliating Sea, as I mentioned. They don't have the Scrap Goblin, so it's pretty much the sole Earth monster in this deck. One interesting thing about this deck is they typically run Flip Flop Frog as the water type removal card. This deck runs 2 copies of Flip Flop along with a Gale Lizard and a Nightmare Penguin. So all of these cards have the similar ability of bouncing a card, but they are slightly different. Gale Lizard is a flip effect. You can target any one of your opponent's monsters. Nightmare Penguin, target 1 card your opponent controls, so it could hit back row. And then the Frog does something different as well. So they all have slightly different abilities. Third place, Shadim, Sorcery Conduit, Invoked, Scrap Goblin version, 3 copies of that card. And in the Synchro decks, Black Rose Dragon and Samurai Destroyer. Samurai Destroyer is a good option, kind of like if you want a level 7 Armadides. That's a beater that hits by back row. Samurai Destroyer is pretty good for that, and of course has generic requirements for tuners and non-tuners. You have to hit that level 7, of course. And third place, Karn, Destiny Draw, Dark Lords. Very interesting. It has Valhalla, Hall of the Fallen. This is a card that has huge play potential. special summon any fairy monster from your hand once per turn. So, any of these Dark Lords are fairies. You can just get them onto the board. And yeah, it's possibly even faster. I'm surprised I haven't seen this deck. This one doesn't have Lava Golem, only one Dark Lord Desire, but Valhalla should be pretty good in getting your monsters out consistently for the deck. Last tournament scene I'm going to talk about is Duel Links Taiwan. Typically the scene with the zaniest decks. And they use two decks, of course. That's a win with both. First place Mr. Zero, Sealed Tombs, Ritual Beasts, and Grit Metaphys. So interesting, this is what I talk about zany. Every deck, every Ritual Beast deck we see in Duel Links meta is a plasma, is an engine for plasma. This one has no plasma in it. I was going to make a joke about plasma TVs, but that's kind of over everyone's head. But anyways, there's a Lava Golem here. Play straight with Ritual Beast, though. There's nothing here that could really beat you there. Herald of the Abyss for removal of a monster. Galaxy Cyclone for your back row. Just one copy. One Ritual Beast Bond. 3 Ambush. The rest are monsters. So this really relies on the power of Ritual Beast. Pure, straight Ritual Beast here. And then Grit Metaphys. I hate this deck so much because it doesn't let you do anything on your turn, but pretty much the same deck. Dropped off the meta a little bit, but it's the same exact deck. 2 Daedalus, 3 Nephis, 2 Tyrant Dragon, 3 Aloof Lupine, 3 Gold Sarcophagus, 3 Asim Metaphys, 2 Soul Absorption, 2 Metaphys Dimension. Second place, Levi-san, Destiny, draw Dark Lords, and Posthumous Army Dark Lords. These two are very similar decks. Destiny Draw version runs a Lava Golem and cuts out a Nastin. Posthumous Army Dark Lords cuts Lava Golem, you have 3 Nastin. Otherwise, the same sustained build with Amdusk, 2 Cosmic Cyclones are the back row, really. 3 Banishment of Dark Lords, 2 Contact, 1 Sanctified Dark Lord, of course. No Morning Stars, 2 Desires. The other cards are pretty much set in stone. Third place, Osama, Balanced Triamids, and Destiny Draw Magnet Warriors. Balanced Triamids, very, very generic deck. No, sometimes you see like a tech card against the meta. They use Mirror Wall. Mirror Wall is kind of the tech card, big monster meta. And Destiny Draw Magnet Warriors, the weird thing about this deck is there is no magnetic field spell here. And it's a very aggressive deck. You got 3 Cosmic Cyclones and a Hey Trunade. The goal is just to blow them out with those cards to remove the back row and then hit with the big monsters. And third place, Anthox, Sorcery Conduit Roach Invoked, and Sorcery Conduit Scrap Invoked. I think this is the way we should call these decks, because that's the only main difference of the decks. These decks are exactly the same. 3 Alistair, 3 Flip Flop, 2 Invocation, 2 Cosmic, 2 Concentrating Current, 2 Econ, 3 Floodgates. The only difference are those 3 Retaliating Sea or 3 Scrap Goblin. Yep, that's it. So yeah, that's basically the development of the week, is this new invoked deck. And those are monsters that no one ever played ever. Those 2 Earth monsters. So they are really invoked is a really fun archetype. You could just discover something new every week. And they have a real threat in the upcoming Kaiba Cup. So let's talk about that, transition that into the tier list update. They're probably going to do a Kaiba Cup version of the tier list, but right now, Duel Links Meta says Dark Lords are tier 1. Tier 2 we have Invoked. They've come up from tier 3, and yeah, it's really about their versatility. You use play around monsters with different attributes, you have something good. Fortune Ladies have dropped down to tier 3. They say they get hurt by spiritual beasts. Bounce Fortune Lady Every, of course. Yeah, bouncing Fortune Lady Every's the nightmare. Fortune Lady Every would rather be destroyed and then come back and win the duel the next turn. Not good. High potential, we still have Crystron and Ritual Beasts. And then the archetypes that have fallen out, Magnet Warriors, Neos, and Yusenjus. I think out of these decks, Magnet Warriors are still they're still a threat, and Neos will see because everyone bought that structure deck. So Yosenju, we kind of saw it coming. It's these effects, these not that great effects going off battles going off. So I mean, battles going off is just the obstacle right now, right? So that is it for the tier list update. So we're gonna move on to the discussion of Transcend Game Part Two. And interesting thing about Transcend Game is any classic Yu-Gi-Oh fan has no idea what this is because this is based off the DSOD movie, of course, and then the Transcend game itself is from manga. So this whole storyline is manga based. And what I noticed is that they're calling things dual links in the manga, and I'm not sure what tie that has with this game, or if they're trying to introduce this game as a subset of the story. I think that might be part of what they were trying to do. But let's talk about Transcend Game. Transcend Game Part 1, we saw the Unknown Duelist rover around. She dropped a lot of the original cards, which were Duza, the Meteor Cubic Vessel. I think we got Constellar Algeti, Cubic Mandala, Constellar Virgo, Constellar Aldebaran, Constellar Star Cradle. Yeah, those cards. So mostly Constellar cards and a Cubic. 2 Cubic cards. This time we get additional cards, and we get to unlock a legendary duelist. But it is not this unknown duelist, it is Sarah. So Sarah was in the movie. She's a little girl. I think Aigami's sister or something. And Aigami's the guy who's like the main bad guy in DSOD. And I guess let's talk about the thing, what we're collecting for the duel. Looks like an egg, I think. They called them neuron gears. So I tweeted out, call these whatever you want, but I think we're collecting eggs. And this tweet actually got quite a bit of traction on the Twitter, so let's talk about these. Doug Dim and Duel Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk has a gif of Frank from It's Always Sunny. Can I offer you a nice egg in this trying time? I think his name's Frank. Whatever. Danny DeVito's character. Card Game Penguin says, but the magic of it is that they are Blue Eyes White Dragon eggs. Okay? I think Blue Eyes White Dragon eggs, we've seen them enough. They're like the Stone of Legend or whatever you call them. Pro Bench Warmer. Easter event. I'm trying to think about whether they did a Halloween thing with Bones before. Easter. I don't know if Easter's too Christian or what. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but that's pretty cool. We are collecting eggs. That's kind of what we're doing. We're the freaking Easter Bunny, or the kids, collecting eggs in the park. The L game says, "Yay! What's for breakfast?" Eggs, of course, are a core of breakfast. Of course, it'd be great to make eggs, but who has the time? I feel like I wake up too early for work and I don't have time to make eggs. But plenty of people do. Duel Links Lounge, a streamer, says, "We farming breakfast." Yep, seems on the same wavelength as the L games. Eggs for breakfast. HS Deck Tech, old buddy who did 99 episodes or 100 episodes of this podcast. Ah, yes, the classic gear look. Some of the jokes we had back then was how silly Yu-Gi-Oh was. I think it was always like weird, the decisions that they made, or whatever thing they did was really weird. This was kind of one of those decisions. You're farming these eggs for for currency, I guess. Curly-haired hero. When you collect enough, you have to fertilize them to unlock prana. Okay, so another thing about our eggs. Tracy Cakes. Lol, I legitimately thought they were eggs until it said gears. Yep. I think it was all intentional. We're all getting there. Mystezies 1231 Jay Alanis says, "How did all these eggs get here?" Through a lot of auto dueling, frankly. Dr. Magnus Nymphonomicon says, "Eggs, eggs, 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 eggs." And finally, Tokyo Escobar V Music Side, "Eggs fam." And then I got a retweet from Marble Scrabble. Aquiline says, "Looks like you haven't come to the great realization. These aren't eggs." Kimururu, who is a Japanese guy, did pretty well in the KC Cup. Placed eighth in the fourth Kaiba Cup, eighth in the fifth. I think I got first in one of them. Anyways, he circled the unknown duelist's rack or breast, and then he also circled the eggs. I can't read Japanese, but I think he is implying these are implants. We are collecting implants. But anyways, what are neural neuron gears? They're VR devices. I think they in the manga they are intentionally there to look like eggs, so they kind of look like eggheads. They're just kids who are playtesting Duel Links, a new virtual dueling system for Kaiba, and they're all wearing these neuron gears on their heads, and they're kind of like eggheads. I think that's the whole joke. And it's like virtual reality dueling. There's like it's basically a helmet, and then the lid comes up. They're all sitting around in virtual reality dueling, but it's kind of funny that they made our currency these neuron gears without really telling us the backstory behind it. But that's what they are. They're not eggs. They're not breast implants. They are virtual reality headsets, basically. All right, enough about non-dueling things. Let's talk about our new cards. These are from the farming event, that ongoing farming event. Constellar Meteor, you are trap card. During the turn, this card is activated if an opponent's monster battles a Constellar monster, and the opponent's monster is not destroyed, shuffled into the deck at the end of the damage step. This is a stall card. It serves to prevent your understated monsters from being attacked. You activate it before their battle phase. You kind of dare them to attack. And then they lose their monster. It gets bounced back to the deck, which is better than returning to the hand, in my opinion. And even it doesn't protect against effect destruction, banish, all those things, but it's just ready to hit with their Dark Lords. You could just do this. And while the archetype has no removal associated with it, so this is something for Constellars that gives them a little bit of playability. Of course, this could be played around, right? They could send their weakest monster in for the hit, and like they're Dark Lords, right? They're all really powerful monsters. So you send the weakest one or whatever, the one you can't recycle. You can play around it. There's many ways to play around this card, but given it's the first hard removal for Constellars, we might have something interesting here. The other new card is Constellar Zubinashamali. Level 5 Light Machine, 2100 attack, 1400 defense. When this card is normal summoned or special summoned, you can add one Constellar monster from your deck to your hand. So this is a combo piece. We have Constellar Virgo, which is from the Unknown Duelist event. I think from same one from the. You could get it again, basically. Level 5. When it's normal summoned, you can special summon one level 5 Constellar from your hand in phase of defense. So you get Virgo out on the board, and then you could combo with Zubinashamali. And Zubinashamali will tutor one card for you. So you basically have two level 5s, and what Constellars are an XZ's deck. We can't play XZ's currently, but you get these cards now, and then they'll be quite handy for XZ's. So definitely, get these cards in your bank. They might have some playability whenever XZ's comes. All right, let's talk about Sarah. I thought it was kind of weird that they gave us this character after teasing out the Unknown Duelist for so long. I really like the design of the Unknown Duelist, and I thought it'd be cool if Sarah was the character on the screen, but then during the duels, it is the Unknown Duelist, because that's really what it goes on. She uses that player character as an avatar for her duels, so that would have been a really cool twist in my opinion, but it is what it is. And Sarah gives out 4 new cards for her level up rewards. First one is Constellar Rasaheg. Level 2 Spellcaster 900 attack 100 defense. You can tribute this card. Special summon one Constellar monster from your hand or graveyard in face of defense, except for Rasselhag. This is a little ramp card here. Helps special summon monsters from this archetype, so you just play it, and then you tribute it, and then you ramp it to something bigger. It's got early and late game use, very important. In early game, get the monster from your hand. Late game, get a monster from your graveyard. And then there's specific synergy with the next card, Constellar Antares. Get 3 copies of this card, though. Also 3 copies of Antares. Constellar Antares. Level 6 machine, 2400 attack, 900 defense. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one Constellar monster in your graveyard added to your hand. So basically, you could just play Rasselhag, tribute it for a Antares in your hand. Your Antares is basically special summoned, and then you get the Rasselhag that's just been tributed in your graveyard and added back to your hand. So it's good recycle right here. And basically, it's a 1-move 2400 attack. Only 900 defense. 2400 attack is impressive though, but synchro plays and whatever we have right now, it's not too impressive. But it would have been really OP back in the day. But it's not a bad move, for what it is. And then Constellar Sheraton. Level 3 Beast, 700 attack, 1900 defense. When this card is normal summoned, you can add one Constellar monster from your deck to your hand. So this is the all-purpose tutor card. Helps you tutor any of your spell or monster Constellar cards. Seems very important. There is specific synergy, though, with Aldebaran. Aldebaran is an old reward, but we still have it. Level 3 Light Beast Warrior. When this card's normal summoned, you can special summon a level 3 Constellar from your hand. So, you're not going to get the ability off, obviously, of this tutor, but, XZs, right? Level 3, you make your rank 3 play there. So that is, just for being 3 stars and existing, that is what the use is for Sheraton. Cards aren't too bad, frankly. We just need to have something to meld it together. The other card, which you only get 2 copies of, is Guardian Avoider. This is not even a Constellar, not even a Cubic. Level 8 Light Warrior, 2500 attack, 1200 defense. If you control 2 or more light monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only control 1 Guardian Avoider. This is kind of like a extra step Cyber Dragon. It costs another monster on the field. No, wait, Cyber Dragon comes out for free. Never mind. Anyways, light monsters are common in Duel Links, so it's not crazy that we'll see this card down the line. It's got no ability. It's just a free 2500. I think the best use for this card is being a big body for synchros. It's like 8 stars for synchros, and then you could turn to like a Star Eater with level 11 or something. I don't know. The 2500 attack is big, but not too big, right? Tie That Binds, you're not going to get over 3,000, and the goal is to get over 3,000 with getting over all the Dark Lord monsters, which are typically around 3,000. So, it's a big guy, free big guy, but not the biggest. That will limit it a bit. You need 2 monsters on the board. That's not a huge limitation, in my opinion, but I think it's just a lot of stars. I think that's the point of this card. Let's talk about Sarah's dual skills. Wave of Enlightenment is the first skill we get. All monsters you control that have an attack equal to their defense gain 300 attack until the end of the turn. This skill can only be used once per turn. So this is like Tie That Binds. As the upside of Tie That Binds, because the most you get is 300. It's meant for Duza the Meteor Cubic Vessel, because that has 1600. I'm sure there are other monsters that it works for. I'm too lazy to go through every single monster. But, this really limits what decks could use this skill. I don't think there is a meta deck where every single card is the same attack and defense. Oh, wait, Fortune Lady? Oh. Fortune Lady always will have the same attack and defense. So I guess this skill isn't completely unplayable, but Fortune Ladies would rather have time passage, of course. This is just the upside of Tie That Binds. It's good. It's great that it could be used every turn, but it's just limited to those monsters. Maybe when more cubics come, it might be a playable skill. The next one is Life Charge. Well, Life Charge Scud already has, so never mind. But it's a level 13 reward for Sarah, and no one's really ever used the charge skills since they've come, so not worth talking about there. Afterlife Lockdown. This is a level 20 reward. Until the end of the turn, if a cubic monster you control destroys an opponent's monster by battle, shuffle the destroyed monster into the owner's original deck instead of sending it to the graveyard. This skill can be used once per turn. This is potentially useful. It has the same impact as Sealed Tombs or Posthumous Army. It's kind of like lock down that graveyard. And it's not a bad thing. It would just completely kill certain decks like Dark Lords or... Well, not Dark Lords. They could just get it back from whatever. But like Blue Eyes. Blue Eyes have a ton of ways of coming back from the graveyard. So this is a very good ability against those decks. But what it is you're limited to those cubic monsters. So this is pretty much unplayable until we get more cubic support. And then Attack 8800 Pulse. Can only be used if you control exactly one level 4 monster with an equal attack and defense. That monster's attack becomes 8800, but returns to its original value at the end of the turn. For the rest of the turn after using the skill, your opponent takes no damage. The skill can be only used once per duel. So why is it 8800? It's like a lore thing. It's kind of with the manga. The unknown duelist was fighting another character, and then its attack became 8800 just out of the blue. So it's kind of like an unexplained ability, but that's what the 8800 is. I don't think it has any meaning. But this is super situational. You have to have that level 4, same attack and defense, which is pretty much, your cubic vessel. But it's useful for clearing your opponent's big threat. It doesn't matter if they don't take any damage. It will just be broken if you beat them in that one turn. But what hurts is that decks have more than one big threat. Dark Lords, every monster's pretty big. Other decks have huge extra decks to deal with. They have different synchro monsters. Fusions, there's various fusions running around, so they don't really have just one big threat that you're going to use this ability on. So, yeah, I don't really see this being too good. So that is it for a Transcend game part 2. While these cards aren't... before this event, I was wondering whether these cards would have an event or the character Sarah would have an impact on the Kaiba Cup. I would say no. Safely say that none of these cards, neither Sarah would make a big impact on the Kaiba Cup at all. But it is a good base to build on when we get future characters like Agami, some of the cubic monsters, and of course the Constellar monsters are useful when Xyz comes. So I'm not disappointed about these rewards at all, since they do have some potential for future play. Alright, so let's move on to the other new card that we're getting, Centaur Mina. This is another Sherry card from the previous circuit things where we got those free cards. Fusion Monster, Light Beast Warrior, 6 stars, 2216. Fusion material of Sacred Knight Spearholder and Horse of the Floral Knights. Of course, it's a person and a horse. Once during each of your turns, you can negate the activation of an opponent's trap card and return to its original position. So, the materials suck, the stats aren't really good. Ability's not the worst, frankly. I mean, you negate one trap card, and they're kind of screwed if they only have one trap card instead of Econ or something. But this is just made moot because Six Samurai Shin is just better in every single way. Better materials, easier to do, better stats, protections, whatever. It probably would have been okay back in the game's beginning, but Six Samurai Shin exists, so this is pretty much superfluous at this point in the game. Now it's time for Doug Dimmaduel's casual deck of the week, and this week he has Sylvans. Never my favorite deck to play against, but that's a nod to how much they frustrated me and how good they actually were. They were very strong tier deck, and with the lift of the nerfs, it's kind of what I did with vampires. I brought that deck back, and it's actually winning me some games in ranked duels. So there's no doubt that Sylvans can still do it. I faced them; they're still a viable threat. So Doug Dimmadule took Sylvans, and the difference here is since the nerfs, these decks have been exposed to synchro plays. I don't think I ever really tried. Well, I did try synchro vampires, but I don't think synchro Sylvans were ever a thing. So Doug here takes some tuners, a couple tuners, and also Jar of Avarice, for example. Cards. Jar of Avarice is more of a long game card, but Stifus and Spore are some of the tuners that will allow Sylvans to have this synchro flexibility. So here is Doug Dimmadule with his casual deck of the week.
Hey there, this is Doug Dimmadule with Doug's Casual Deck of the Week. This week, I wanted to run through a Sylvan deck now that Sylvans have been pretty much unnerfed and now that the changes have occurred on the most recent limited list. The only card that's still on that list is Rose Lover, which is a plant, 800 attack, 800 defense. You can banish this card from the graveyard, special summon one plant-type monster from your hand, and if you do, it's unaffected by your opponent's trap effects this turn. You can only use that effect once per turn. So, really, really good card, but everything else is fair game. So you can run 3 copies of your Sylvan Koma Shrumo, and of course the 3 copies of Sylvan Martial Leaf. You want to run 3 copies of each if you're running a Sylvan deck. So at least my deck build, it's mostly monsters and just one trap card that I run 3 copies of. And that one trap card, and you could change it depending on what you're, what you're trying to do, but I like to run Jar of Avarice, and this is where you target 5 cards in the graveyard except Jar of Avarice, shuffle all 5 into the deck, and then draw 1 card. You can only activate 1 Jar of Avarice once per turn, so this allows you to, late in the game, really control what you want to put back into your deck for additional milling later on in the game, because that's one of the issues with the Sylvan deck is if you get past turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, and you're milling a lot of cards out of your deck, you really kind of run out of moves, but Jar of Avarice really restocks your deck with what you want to kind of put in there, and you're able to really make some magic happen. So, as far as the deck list goes, I run my 3 copies of Sylvan Koma Shrumo, and it's the plant to a 2000 defense, where when this card is flipped face up, you can choose a number from 1 to 5, and then excavate that many cards from the top of your deck. Send any plant-type monsters to the graveyard from that number 1 through 5, and also place the other cards on the bottom of your deck in any order. If this card is excavated from your deck and sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target 1 spell or trap card on the field and destroy that target. So this is one that you want to, really kind of open your hand with. So maybe the restart skill could be pretty good because this gets you through a good chunk of your deck. The one non-plant monster that I run in this deck, and I just run 1 copy just for the heck of it, is Stifus. It's a beast tuner. It's only level 1, 100 attack, 100 defense. Once per turn, you contribute 1 plant-type monster to select and destroy 1 face-up card your opponent controls. When a plant-type monster on the field is destroyed while this card is in the graveyard, you can special summon this card from the graveyard. If you do, remove this card from play when it's removed from the field. So this one, it has some synergy with the plant monsters, but you have to find another way to put it into your graveyard, maybe by setting it and letting it get destroyed or some other way. But the other tuner, and I only have 1 copy of this, and I think it's one that you could get from one of those anniversary boxes or whatever it was, one of those special boxes. It'll probably be an SR in an upcoming box set soon, but that card is Spore. It's a plant tuner, 400 attack, 800 defense. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 1 other plant-type monster from your graveyard and special summon this card from your graveyard and increase its level by the level of that banished monster. Each player can only activate the effect of Spore once per duel. So it's a level 1, you can banish a monster, you could get some really, really good synchro plays going. That's why my extra deck is all different level monsters depending on what I want to use it for, because you're probably only going to have 1 to 2 synchros per duel using the Sylvan deck, but anywhere from Star Eater, which is a level 11 synchro, all the way down to level 5 synchro monster for Armades Keeper of Boundaries. So really it just depends on what you want to do, and that's what makes Sylvans now such an interesting and flexible threat, is the ability to really open up your extra deck with all the different synchro plays. So moving on, I have my 2 copies of Rose Lover. I know that's the one that's still semi-limited, so just kind of run that copy. I run 1 of Sylvan Hermitry. It's a pretty good one. I mean, it's a 2700 attack. I think it's a level 8. Once per turn, you can excavate the top card of your deck, and if it's a plant-type monster, send it to the graveyard, and if you do, draw 1 card. Otherwise, place it on the bottom of your deck. If this card is excavated from the deck and sent to the graveyard by card effect, look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, and then place them on the top of your deck in any order. So this allows you to do a little bit more control as to what's going to be milled next, or what you're going to draw into. Overall, really good card. But this is one of my favorite ones. I got 3 copies of my World Carat Weight Champion. It's got a 1900 attack, but the nice thing is when it's sitting in your graveyard, you can send 1 plant-type monster from your hand to the graveyard to special summon your World Carat Weight Champion back onto the field. So if you got something in your hand like a Rose Lover or another card that you really don't need to have in your hand, or Spore or something like that, if you open up with that kind of thing, because odds are you're going to open up with the cards you don't want to open up with, but having World Carat Weight Champion in the graveyard allows you to control what you want to put into the graveyard in exchange for a special summon. And that'll set you up for your Sylvan Guardioch. It's a level 6 plant. It only requires 1 monster for tribute, so you could really use your Carat Weight tribute into Sylvan Guardioch and activate its effect, where once per turn, you can choose a number from 1 to 3, then excavate that many cards from the top of your deck. Send any excavated plant-type monsters to the graveyard, and also place the other cards in the bottom of your deck in any order. If this card is excavated from your deck and sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target 1 other plant-type monster in your graveyard and place that target on the top of your deck. So this has multiple uses. It can set you up for your next draw. It can set you up for your next mill. There's a whole lot you could do with it. And then finally, I run my 3 copies of Sylvan Martial Leaf. It's a level 3 plant, 1500 attack. When this card is normal summoned, you can choose either 1 or 2, and then excavate that many cards from the top of your deck. Send any plant-type monsters to the graveyard and place the other cards on the bottom of your deck in any order. If this card is excavated from your deck and sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 monster on the field and destroy that target. So ultimately, what do you want to send to the graveyard? Well, basically most of the deck. You want to send a Marshmallow Leaf to the graveyard to pop a monster. You want to send your Komushrumo to the graveyard as well. You also want to have your Spore sitting in your graveyard or a Rose Lover sitting in your graveyard. You're able to then special summon a trap-resistant plant monster for the remainder of that turn. I mean, this deck works so well with just putting monsters into the graveyard that have solid effects. Now, having Jar of Avarice in here, it's a game changer because not only does it allow you to draw an extra card, but it allows you to control what's going back into your deck. Maybe your opponent is back row heavy, so you want to put a bunch of Komushurumos back into your deck. Or if your opponent hardly is playing any back row and they're using just monsters, shuffle back in some Sylvan Marshmallow Leafs back into your deck and then hopefully mill them to pop monsters on your opponent's side of the field. So overall, this deck is fantastic. I'm having a lot of fun playing with it, but the fact that it gives you extra life by running this deck with Jar of Avarice is just a bit of a game changer. But also, I'm really looking forward to having more copies of Spore introduced into the game, probably through an upcoming box set. So it's something worth looking into. If you don't have a copy, just sit tight. I'm sure one will be available probably in a future box. But anyway, that's it for my casual deck of the week. I will see you next time. Take care.
All right, thanks, Doug. And you can check out his cool decks every week on this podcast, or check him out on his Twitter page, Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk. Upcoming news: Kaiba Cup is starting. It'll be around next week, November 14th. We'll probably be in stage 1 by then, and it ends on the 24th of November. So it'll take up the bulk the middle part of this week. In this month, November, Tour Guide's Mission Bingo with Kite Roid. We have a new Roid monster. Late November, Tag Duel Tournament with Violon Prison and Dark Archetype, 2 new monsters. Alluring Alexis is coming. New cards, Cyber Tutubon and Magnificent Machine Angel. Late November, Ubel and Jaden Ubel are retired. Their events are officially over. And the update of checking the list during your opponent's turn. I am still unclear if this has been enacted, but I feel like it has been. I've seen it in a tip screen, but it's possible they just put the tip screen up prematurely. I don't really know. Okay, so that is it for this episode of the podcast. Thank you very much. Listen and subscribe to this podcast anywhere you check out your podcast. All the notes here are on the duelassessment.wordpress.com. And you can find me on Twitter, duel_assessment, or me at Green Ranger CCG. Hopefully I will remember to have a question of the week for the upcoming episode 140. Alright, so that is it, everyone. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time.